Ukraine latest, Russia sees long slump, U.S. targets debt payments. Russia said its economic recession will last longer than previously thought, while the U.S. was set to curb Moscow's ability to make debt payments, raising the odds that President Vladimir Putin's government will. European officials expressed optimism that Turkish concerns at Sweden and Finland joining NATO can be resolved, but the Nordic leaders are increasingly pinning their hopes on U.S. President Joe Biden, who will host the Swedish and Finnish leaders in Washington. The government in Kyiv said that it will seek a prisoner swap after more than 200 Ukrainian fighters left the Mariupol steel plant and were taken into captivity by Russian forces. Zelensky addresses Cannes Film Festival. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a former actor and producer, urged the world of cinema to help fight for freedom and battle a dictator in an address to the Cannes Film Festival, citing the need for a new Charlie Chaplin. Zelensky referenced The Great Dictator, Chaplin's film about Nazi Germany. As then, there is a war for freedom, he said. Words are needed to sound like in 1940 from all screens of the free world. Separately, in his nightly video address to Ukrainians, Zelensky said that efforts to get more fighters out of the Azovstal steel plant continue and the most influential international middlemen are involved, without providing details to block Russia from repaying bondholders. The Biden administration is poised to prevent Russia from being able to make payments to U.S. bondholders, a move that could bring Moscow closer to defaulting on. The Treasury is expected to let a temporary exemption, which had enabled Russia to stay current on its payments, lapse after it expires next week, according to people familiar with the matter. EU weighs tapping seized oligarch assets to rebuild Ukraine. The European Union will propose issuing joint debt and explore using proceeds from assets that were seized from sanctioned oligarchs to fund the reconstruction of Ukraine. The European Commission will propose on Wednesday to also use fresh grants coming from member states and third countries, according to a draft proposal of the EU's plan seen by Bloomberg. The Commission will offer Kyiv between €7 billion and €9 billion, $7.3 billion and $9.5 billion, in loans to finance the government's pressing bills, as part of the package still being discussed. People familiar with the plans. Member states will offer fresh guarantees to allow the bloc to offer long-term loans, while grants from the EU budget will subsidize interest payments. Russia warns recession will last longer, TASS says. Russia is heading into a recession amid high commodity prices for the first time in recent memory, the economy ministry said, according to TASS, as sanctions squeeze gross domestic product will contract by 7.8% this year and 0.7% in 2023, according to the Economy Minute. High energy prices will keep the cash flowing in, with the current account surplus seen reaching a record of $191 billion this year. The ruble's recent rally is likely to reverse into declines later in the year, while incomes fall and unemployment rises. The official forecast for the contraction remains milder than those seen by some economists who expect a decline of 12% or more, making this year the worst performance in a generation. U.S. readies arms aid for India. The U.S. is preparing a military aid package for India to deepen security ties and reduce the country's dependence on Russian weapons, people familiar with the matter. While the package under consideration would include foreign military financing of as much as $500 million, not enough for fighter jets or naval ships, it would still be a significant symbol of support. Czech EU presidency to prioritize Ukraine bid. Ukraine's application to join the European Union will be a top priority for the Czech Republic when it takes over the bloc's rotating presidency from July, Foreign Minister Jan Lipovsky said in an interview that he was convinced Ukraine could beat back Russia because of the delivery of modern, Western-made heavy weapons that outclass the Soviet-era arms and older designs that Moscow is limited to producing because of technology. Hungary outlines cost to ditch Russian oil. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government told EU counterparts that it will cost at least $810 million to revamp Hungary's oil industry, as Budapest continues to obstruct a bloc-wide ban on Russia. Hungary said €550 million, $580 million, were needed to overhaul its refineries to comply with the ban, and another €220 million for a pipeline from Croatia, according to people familiar with EU discussions this week, and documents see additional funds may be needed to adapt to a potential price spike resulting from a ban on Russian imports. Putin, EU committing economic suicide. Europe will face the highest energy prices in the world over the long term if it rejects Russian supplies, and this could have irreversible consequences for much of the continent's industry, President Vladimir Putin said, adding that the EU is committing economic. Speaking at a meeting on the development of the oil industry Tuesday, Putin said that energy inflation was due to Europe's turn away from traditional energy in favor of alternative energy, as well as political measures taken in response to the conflict. They are trying to blame energy inflation on us, give it our names, blame their systemic mistakes on us, Putin said. Biden to host leaders of Sweden, Finland. U.S. President Joe Biden will host Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson and Finnish Prime Minister Sauli Niinistö on Thursday to discuss the country's applications to join NATO as well as support for Ukraine, the White House said. News of the visit comes after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he would oppose the applications over what he said was a willingness by the Nordic nations to host Kurdish militants. The U.S. will strongly support these applications when they are formally presented in Brussels, White House Press Secretary Karina Jean-Pierre said Monday. Finnish lawmakers overwhelmingly back NATO entry. Finland's parliament signed off on plans to seek membership in NATO alongside Sweden, with 188 lawmakers in Helsinki backing the proposal to aid against. The bill will be signed by the government as well as President Sauli Niinistö before the application can be delivered to NATO headquarters in Brussels. Sweden's application requires no vote in parliament and was signed by Foreign Minister Ann Linde earlier Tuesday. Policymakers have said they wish to submit their letters together. Operation to extract Mariupol fighters ongoing. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar told a televised briefing that she can't provide details and reiterated that it is impossible for Ukraine to unblock Mariupol using military force. The government knows how many people remain in the Azovstal works but won't disclose the number. We hope this rescue operation ends well, she said. Soldiers in Mariupol prevented Russia from moving 20,000 of its troops to capture Zaporizhzhia and encircle Ukrainian forces, Maliar said, adding that they provided critically needed time to organize. Ukraine-Russia peace talks suspended. Negotiations are paused between Ukraine and Russia, said Mihailo Podolyak, a member of Ukrainian team. He cited among the reasons the fact that Russia doesn't understand that the war is not going according to its schedule or plan. We are not talking about the Ukrainian delegation exiting the negotiating process, we are talking only about expediency and specifics at this stage, he said. Political talks will continue as soon as there are some specifics. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko said that talks were not currently going on in any form after Kyiv essentially withdrew from the process, according to Interfax. Gazprom declines to pay Gazprom in rubles. Finland's Gazprom said it won't switch to ruble payments required by Russia's Gazprom, and it will take the company's long-term gas supply contract into arbitration. There's an increased risk gas flows from Russia into Finland might be halted, the company said. Separately, the EU said that gas companies would violate sanctions if they open bank accounts in rubles to buy Russian gas, but can still purchase the fuel if they follow the bloc's guidance.